put this here, like this, because we're back. We're back, baby. Hi. Hi. This, you know what? It's been such a long time since I have sat in my dining room, since I have recorded a YouTube video. One would think that I've forgotten how to speak. But I haven't, I promise. I am recording this video in a time where there are a lot of building works going on around my house. So I've put a little microphone on top of the camera. Hopefully that makes a difference to the cranes and bulldozers and hammers and paving slabs being laid all over the joint. But hello, I'm creeping back into YouTube because it's been a while. Like, I don't even know how to explain my months of absence. We've definitely had things going on, we've definitely had things happen, and I have got a true crime documentary coming on Channel 4 on Monday night. So if you are watching this on the day that I upload, on Monday night in 4 sleeps, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, I've got a true crime 2-part documentary happening on Channel 4. And if you are watching this after Monday the 20th of June, go on all 4, type in how to hire a hitman, and give my double bill a watch, because yeah, I've been working super hard on life, yes, career, true crime stuff, and that's all starting to happen. It's really exciting. It's really amazing that this series started in my dining room, started here with just me and you guys. Our small little thing that we have going on with the anniversary has got me on mainstream telly. So yay, yay. But for now, I'm back where it all began, in my dining room, on YouTube. Hello, let's do this. Welcome back to the anniversary. Now, you may remember the drill. If you don't, that's fine. I take a crime story on the week of its anniversary and tell you all about it right here on my YouTube channel. Make sure that you are liking, subscribing, commenting if you do like my content, and I aim to bring you regular videos from here on out. I am making a pinky promise, Scouts honour, all of that sort of stuff to ya. And I want to throw it back to June 16th, 2002, because that is where our story takes place. It was on the morning of June 16th that Janet Fisher last spoke to her sister Barbara and her father John. That was the day, Father's Day in America in 2002, that the pair went missing. Now, John was 87 at the time of his disappearance and Barbara was 58 years old. They were at John's home on Palisades Drive in Lake Arrowhead, and that is in California. It was a house that John had bought in the 1960s, and it was a lake-facing property. When they first bought it, John and his first wife, they envisioned it to be a vacation home, one they can rent out for some of the year, and one where they can have the kids and they can stay there for the rest of the time. The Painter family, though, had their fair share of heartbreak. John's first wife died in the 1960s, and then he developed dementia in his later life, which left his adult children to look after him, to take care of him. And his daughter Janet bore most of that responsibility. She bared the brunt of the weight, so to speak. She used to take her father up to the mountains, take him on long walks and all of that sort of stuff. And in June of 2002, Janet took a much needed and much deserved vacation. She went on holiday to Hawaii, and she left her father in the very capable hands of her younger sister Barbara Martin. Now, the morning of June 16th started like any other. Samuel Charles Wright had worked on and off for John Painter over about 7 years. He was employed to be a handyman in the Painter's lake house property. He did bits and bobs around their Arrowhead home. I mean, you know, like fix tiles and build stuff and like lay concrete and, you know, those sort of things there. But for some reason, it was this day that things took an awful turn. Janet had spoken to her dad and sister in the morning, but she soon lost contact with the pair, and Samuel and his friend Jonathan Holman were at the house to do some work on some cabinets and do some odd jobs, bits and bobs for John. While working in the kitchen, John Holman said that Samuel Wright asked him twice about killing John Painter and Barbara Martin. Now, the first time, John Holman said no, but Samuel kept talking and bothering, and this hadn't been the first time that he had mentioned murdering people. A few weeks before that, Apparently, according to John, Samuel had talked about killing somebody for money. And on this day in the kitchen, while they were doing their work, apparently Samuel Wright was bashing on about the Bible, about God, about Jesus, and also about killing John Painter and his daughter Barbara. And what can only be described as a completely unprovoked attack on an elderly man, Samuel Wright lured John Painter into a basement utility room in the home, saying that there was a sewage leak. And once they were there, he struck John Painter with a ball-peen hammer on the back of the head. Now, Barbara Martin, she was choked and she was dragged into a bathtub of water and then strangled. And when her body was found, a plastic grocery bag was on her head, but their bodies wouldn't be found for 10 days after they were killed. And in that time, Jonathan Holman and Samuel Wright thought that they had got away with murder. Now, after killing the father and daughter, the killers took their checkbooks, they took money out of their wallets, and they began spending it. Samuel contacted some friends, one called Shannon and one called Melanie, and he asked them if they wanted a cleaning job to come and clean the Painter home. What? And the girls agreed. They met the next day, June 17th, and when Samuel arrived to let them into the house, he was driving the car that Janet had actually left for Barbara to drive their dad around. I mean, this guy seemed to not give shits nor giggles about being caught. He showed the cleaners around the home, gave them a few directions of what to do, and warned them several times to stay out of the basement, stay out of the basement, stay out of the basement, saying that there were sewage problems and he didn't want them going down there. The cleaners later said that they did find like a deep red stain that they couldn't get out of the carpet in one of the rooms, but they didn't know what it was or what they were actually doing, which was cleaning up a crime scene. One of them found John Painter's driving license underneath a toaster, and when she told one of the murderers, oh, like, I found this thing here, he told her to put it back where she found it. And I guess you don't ask, you don't get the answers that you don't want. But this pair were deplorable. Like, they even got one of the cleaners to drive them to a pawn shop with some of John Painter's things to pawn them, and then they tried to cash a check for yard work for $300. But when the cashier wanted verification of the amount, wanted to speak to John Painter, they obviously weren't able to. They asked the cleaner to call John Painter, knowing that he was dead, to try and get in contact with him. But on the phone was like the other killer answering down the phone, and the pawn shop worker even knew the men who were trying to pawn the items and cash the check, so they were like, nah. They tried at another shop, they were like, nah. But a local bank actually enabled them and let them cash these checks. A lady called Mary Seary, who was a bank manager at the Jackson Federal Bank, she said that the bank paid 3 checks totaling $2,250. 2 of them were made out to Jonathan Holman and 1 was made out to Samuel Wright. And these were written in the days after, following the murder of John Painter, but they were checks that were written from his checkbook. If running around town and spending the money wasn't bad enough, the killers then had a party at the Painter home on June 20th, so 4 days after they murdered John and Barbara. There were people there that were drinking, they were taking drugs. I think I read somewhere, and of course I'm going to link all of my research in the description box, but I'm pretty sure I read that methamphetamines were available at the party. And some of the people who attended this like live your best life shindig smelled a foul odour in the home. One that Samuel Wright, who was posing as the caretaker of the property, explained away as being from bad sewage leaks. Now, for some reason, when I look at crimes and when I'm researching them and I try to get to the bottom of how a killer was caught or how a suspect has gotten taken into custody, they get stopped by the police. A lot of the time, people get stopped by the police in their cars for something unrelated. Like, it could be their tail light is out, or it could be that they overtaked, or they were doing the wrong way down a one-way, or, you know, they were going past the speed limit. And this story is no different. Samuel Wright was pulled over by the police when he failed to stop at a stop sign, and he was driving Janet's stolen car. So he, like many other killers who get caught, got stopped by the police in his car. Well, it's not his car, it's Janet's car. But this guy had big balls. I mean, like cojones. He handed over Janet's registration and her expired insurance card, telling the police that this was his boss's car and that he had permission to drive it. The officer clocked quite quickly though that Samuel actually had a few warrants out for his arrest. There was one for skipping out on a hotel bill after he and Jonathan had killed John Painter and Barbara while they were on their post-murder party spree. He also had a suspended license, so the officer detained him and began searching the car. At this point, it had been 5 days since John and Barbara were last seen and heard from. Now, during the search of this car, the police officer found John Painter's credit card. And Samuel, you guessed it, 10 points to Ravenclaw. He said that John was his boss as well, but he was arrested. And he used his phone call in custody to call his parents. And over a few phone calls over the next couple of days, he told them that John Holman, who of course is his partner in crime, who is the accomplice, needs to go up and clean this one property. He knows what it is, he said. He also admitted to using John Painter's cards on the phone with his dad without John's knowledge. He asked his parents not to say anything about the car, and he said that they shouldn't even call the Painters because they were on holiday in Hawaii, knowing that the bodies of these two people are decomposing in their basement. On June 26th, a housekeeper went to the Painter home and noticed that horrible smell, the smell that has been the thread running through this story. Janet Fisher, John's daughter, the lady that I told you about at the beginning of this, she had come back from Hawaii and she called the police to ask them to carry out a welfare check on her dad and sister because she couldn't get in contact with them. Now, police went to the home, and other than a plastic bag full of rubbish left by a side door, the home was not in disarray. There was no sign of breaking and entering. There was no sign of a struggle. There was no sign of anything because, of course, the cleaners had been and gone. A pair of sheriff's deputies, they walked through and they didn't see anything, but they noticed that strong smell, that the cleaner had smelled, that the party goers, ravers, schmavers had smelled, that everybody had been smelling coming from the basement. And in the basement, things were very different to what they were in the rest of the house. On the floor of the storeroom, a foot with a dark coloured sock and a shoe was sticking out from under a carpet and a blanket. And the police officer who actually made the discovery said that he already knew just by seeing that that was a victim, that person was already dead. And that turned out to be the body of John Painter. Barbara's body was found under a blanket and she had a plastic bag over her head. She had wounds on her body that suggested that she fought for her life. And when it came to question these two, when it came to their main suspects, I mean, they blamed each other. Samuel blamed Jonathan and Jonathan blamed Samuel. Now, Samuel said that on the day of the attack, he and John had gone over to work on some cabinets at the Painter home, and when they were done, John Holman asked him to go and look at a broken ceiling fan upstairs, and when he got up there, Barbara was laying on the floor convulsing. He then was called downstairs by John Holman to see his friend standing over John Painter's body. His story, because it was not the truth, changed a few times, and eventually he admitted to helping strangle Barbara, that he was the one that suggested putting the bag over her head. He also admitted to his part in John Painter's murder. He said that he told John Holman to put him out of his misery after he had been attacked. Now, John Holman said that he was high and that he hadn't slept for days when he agreed to work with Samuel that day. Although recordings of phone calls that he made while in police custody that were played out in the courtroom at the trial had him laughing after saying that he and Samuel had killed a couple of people. Now, they both had excuses. Samuel was saying that he needed money, and he said that John had underpaid him for some work, and then he told somebody else that he needed money to pay off warrants and fines. And the defense lawyers for both of them insisted that the killings were neither planned, premeditated, nor were they first-degree murder, as that was what they were charged with. And both men just pointed the finger at each other in court, but eventually they were both sentenced to life in prison, and they were only 22 years old, both of them, at the times of these murders. there you have it, the story of the Father's Day murders of John Painter and Barbara Martin, who were killed for no other reason than so two others could have a good time. I just realised that I did not add the clock to this video, but it doesn't matter, that's not the important thing. The important thing is that we are back, we are up and running, and we are doing YouTube again. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you for being so patient with me as well. I have received quite a few messages and stuff on Instagram or other social medias asking me to hurry up and get my behind back on YouTube, but hopefully with the true crime documentaries making their way into the world, it can explain my absence, but hopefully you forgive me, and I just appreciate your patience. I'll be back as soon as I can, which is probably going to be next week, for another installment of the anniversary. And if you like my content, if you've had a watch of all of my old videos and you think, do you know what, she seems alright, or this is your first time, then give me a cheeky subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you again. I hope to see you again. Thank you so much for watching.